In this video, I want to show you how I have set up my monitoring system for my home lab. A monitoring system for your home lab or even for your business can help you foresee problems before they actually become a bigger problem. Let's say I am monitoring a router and I'm getting alerts that one of the interfaces is having CRC errors. I can actually do the troubleshooting, meaning I can check the cabling and possibly replace the cable. That can happen before my clients can even notice. And if this is your home lab, then your kids might be your clients. For anyone who has kids, knows what I'm really talking about. Now, you want to make sure your monitoring is automated because you don't want to have to check every single device, otherwise it will take a lot of your time, and this is what we will be doing today. The monitoring software I chose is Prometheus, and I will be displaying all my metrics that I collect from Prometheus into Grafana. Grafana is not the only monitoring solution out there that can do this by far. Example, you can also achieve the same goal with Zabbix. In this video, I am not going to compare Zabbix with Grafana, but if you are interested, I suggest you to go and watch my video, Zabbix versus Grafana, especially with Zabbix being a big player in the monitoring world. In this video, I went into more details about logging and metrics, so I suggest you to go and check it out. Now, if you're starting in the world of computing or you just want to learn more, I suggest you to familiarize yourself with Grafana because it's one of the best tools out there that can do the job. And speaking of jobs, LinkedIn is full of jobs requiring you to know Grafana, especially with businesses using cloud or hybrid environments. I always like to be practical on this channel, so I try to showcase technology that is used in the professional world. If you are enjoying my videos, please like and subscribe to my channel. It encourages me to make more videos like this. And don't forget to comment down below, even if you just say hello. It will help me beat YouTube algorithm and also compete with the bigger channels. Let's say we have two devices that we want to monitor. So first thing, we have a switch. So I'm drawing a switch and a router, and both of these devices support SNMP. If you have any other devices on your network that supports SNMP protocol, you can monitor it. Now, in order for Prometheus, I'm going to put Prometheus here. Right, Prometheus. And Prometheus, to be able to talk to the switches using SNMP, it cannot do that on its own. So we would need a special software called SNMP-Exporter. Now, SNMP-Exporter acts as a translator between Prometheus and your network devices. The data will flow back to this SNMP-Exporter, so as the switch will send data to the SNMP-Exporter and then SNMP-Exporter to Prometheus. Now, we will actually be displaying all these metrics into Grafana, so we would need a Grafana box here, and Grafana and Prometheus will talk to each other, and the protocol that they will be using is PromQL. Now, let's say we also have a server and we want to monitor it. Therefore, we will need something here that's called Node Exporter. And what Node Exporter does is actually acts as an agent on the server, which then sends the data to Prometheus. So everything back to Prometheus. Prometheus, this is the workhorse behind the scenes. It acts as a pull-based monitoring system. It's scraping data from various sources at regular intervals. In this case, it's scraping off data from SNMP-Exporter and also Node Exporter. Now, the good thing about this is that a user would need to log into Grafana, and within Grafana, you can see all the metrics all in one place. So you don't have to log in Prometheus or SNMP-Exporter to see the data. Everything is captured in one place. Now that we got all that out of the way, let's jump in and configure all the components that we need. For this lab, I will be using Docker, and I will be running all my 3 images in Docker. So make sure that you have Docker installed. If not, you just run sudo apt install docker-compose, And if it's not installed already, you will get the installation and you basically install it. Now, in my case, I am using the 22, give you exactly the release. It's the 22.04.2, it's LTS version. It's something I use in my lab at this point in time. Now, to make it easy for you, I have uploaded all my configuration file for Docker into my Git repository, and I'm going to put a link in the description below. And this will facilitate the installation of your components. So all we need to do is we just need to clone the Git repository. So I am going to do it here. So that's done by doing git clone command and then putting the URL of my Git repository. I'm running the git clone command and now it's downloading all the files. So once this is done, I have all my files and then I can run docker compose and it will install the Docker images as well automatically. And it's basically much straightforward than have to do it on an operating system. Also, if you're doing any changes, in my personal opinion, it's much better to do it in a container environment. Let's go through the Docker compose configuration. And as you can see here, the first image we have, or the first container we have, is the Grafana. So image is Grafana, self-explanatory. The container name, we're going to name it Grafana. We want to make sure that it's always running. So that command, it's there, it's for that. Now we want to expose port 3000 to the container. And also I want to have a persistent volume. So every time I stop the containers and restart them, I won't lose the changes and I won't lose the data. So this is actually where everything will be stored for Grafana. Now I've also included here for user 472 and group 472 because I want to use this user and group to run Grafana. Now, also, you have dependency here, which is Prometheus. So I want to make sure that Prometheus is running before Grafana starts. Again, same thing here is happening. So we have the first part explaining that there's a image which is called Prometheus. I want the latest version. Container name Prometheus. Also keep it running. That's why there's that restart command. And also port expose port 9090 to the internal container port. And very important that the data is persistent. So I have also configured the location for the persistent volume. And in this case, there are two locations, which one is the data where Prometheus keeps all the data which is scraped. And also you have the Prometheus configuration. Now, if I want to do a change to the configuration, I can go in this location. And then when I rerun restart the container, it will take that new configuration that I have there. Again, we have dependency on an SNMP-Exporter, which is basically the next container. And here, same thing, image. We're going to use the SNMP-Exporter image, the latest one. Container name, always keep it running and exposing 9116 to the 9116 of the container. Persistent volume as well. So it's pretty much straightforward. And basically, this will have running for us 3 components. And we can actually monitor what we have talked about already. The first time I run it, I don't like running it as a daemon because I would like to see any errors that occur. So in this case, what I'll do is sudo docker compose, and basically I can do up, and if there are any errors, it will basically show up here. And then I can easily look into why it stopped. So what it's doing now, it's just downloading all the images. And in a moment, after it downloads all these images, it will show us. There you go. So now it have downloaded it. Now it's running. And you could see there is Prometheus exited with code 2. So if I do Control C, I can see why it's that. And if I scroll a bit here or up here, I can see that, look, there's a permission problem. And probably it's the same thing from Prometheus. So let's have a look at the volume. So, okay, so that is giving permission to the volumes. Now, if we run it again, let's have a look if we get the same error. docker. Now you can see that it's not downloading the images, it's actually running it straight away. And I don't see the same errors, at least yet. So let's test it out. So in order to test it out, we need to go to the Grafana website. So let's jump in here. And the port that is being exposed is that one. So, well, we can see that the Grafana is actually running. So if we run here, if we put here the credentials, admin, it will ask us for a new password. So let's put a password in. And we are in. It looks like Grafana is actually running. So let's go in and check out the other two components. The other component will be running on the same IP, but would be running on Prometheus runs on 9090, at least in our case. And whoop, there you go. It looks like it's actually running. And the other component is the SNMP-Exporter. Now the exporter runs on 9116. And there you go. It's actually running as well. So the three components are actually working now. Now that we have all the containers running and we have tested them, let's run them in the background. On the screen, I still have them running, so I can press Ctrl+C, and now I have stopped the containers. Now, in order for me to run them in the background, what I need to do is I need to run the same command, but with a flag at the end, which is a -d flag. And this tells the containers to run in the background. Now, if I want to check if the containers are running, I can do the same command, but at the end, I can put a PS. This command also gives us some important information, which is the name of the containers, the state of the container, and also the ports that the containers are running. Let's have a look at the Prometheus configuration. That will be interesting to see what we are monitoring from there. So if we go to Prometheus config, I can do sudo vi to edit, and there's a Prometheus YML, a YAML file. And to explain the SNMP part, it's basically this part here, and the target that we are monitoring is the 192.168.100.1 port 161, which is the default SNMP port, and that is actually my firewall. It's what I'm monitoring using SNMP. Here it's calling a module ifmib, and if we also want to check what's in there, we can actually go to, this time, the SNMP-Exporter folder. And there's a SNMP target. And here we can see the IP address of the firewall again. So SNMP-Exporter is actually communicating with this IP address. It's using SNMP version 2. And something that is very important here is the community string. It's something that I've set up, which is the Antonio SNMP, which is the SNMP community. Now this part here, it needs to match the firewall, the device I am actually monitoring. So if I bring here my firewall, this is a pfSense, let's check the SNMP string. So if I go to the SNMP part of the firewall, I can see here that the read community string is Antonio SNMP, which is basically matching the configuration on the SNMP-Exporter. You can also test SNMP-Exporter from its own web browser, from the application. So let's have a look how you can do that. If we go on the exporter URL, putting the target IP, which is actually the firewall in this case, and if I hit submit, I can see that I can read SNMP. That's SNMP data. We can also test what Prometheus is learning. So you can do this by going to Prometheus URL. This time we go to 9090. And once you're here, if you go to status, you can check the targets. So we click on targets, and here we can see what data we're learning. So there is another endpoint here. We're going to talk about this later, but for the time being, we're interested in the SNMP part. So here we have SNMP data for 192.168.100.1, which is actually the firewall. So it tells us here that it's actually scraping data for this device. Now, before we move on to Grafana dashboards, I want to show you Node Exporter, Node Exporter, it's like an agent that actually runs on a Linux server or a Windows server. And with this Node Exporter, you can then monitor that server and display those metrics in Grafana. Let me show you how you install that. First thing we want to do is we want to create a folder. And I've created the folder already, so I just need to go in that folder before I start downloading the tar. Now the file is actually in Git in repository, which is in Prometheus, and I will put a link in the description below. Let's download that file. Brilliant. We need to untar it. Now let's go in the Node Exporter, and in here there should be another Node Exporter folder, and we need to move this in the USR local bin. What I'm doing here is actually I'm setting up Node Exporter to run as a daemon. So we want to make sure that it's always running. Let's add a user. And now we need to modify a file and put here in this file some config. We don't need to go through this at the time being. Save the config. Once we save the config, we need to reload the daemon and then start the Node Exporter and enable Node Exporter to start when the operating system is booting up. Let's verify if Node Exporter is running. So if we do status, yep, it looks like it's running here, as you can see, active and running. Now we can also check on using a browser to see if there are metrics using Node Exporter. So let's do that. 192.168.100.22:9100/metrics. And there you go. Now, as you can see here, there are metrics. Now that we have metrics, we can actually display these metrics in Grafana dashboard. Now let's go ahead and look into Grafana. On Grafana, you can create some very cool dashboards, but you would need to understand some of the syntax that is used to display the metrics from Prometheus. However, don't give up yet, because on Grafana website, you can actually download dashboards that are ready-made that other users have created already, and obviously they were generous enough to share. So you don't have to spend so much time to create dashboards. You can actually get those ready-made dashboards. I am going to show you how you can actually do that. Okay, so let's go to the Grafana website. So it's grafana.com/grafana/dashboard. Don't worry about this because I will actually link it in the description below. Now, let's do a search here, Node Exporter dashboard, and let's see what it comes up with. And there you go. So you have here some dashboards that are ready-made that we can download and actually install it to display those Node Exporter metrics. Now, if we click here, we can it's actually be maintained as well. So we can actually see new updates. So we click there and we need to download the dashboards. I can actually do that. And there you go, that's downloaded. Now, if we go to our dashboard, I can go to dashboards and I can create a dashboard. And in this case, I want to import one. So let me import one. I'm just gonna drag the JSON file. I can name it whatever I want. Now here, Prometheus as a source, we need to configure that because we have not configured it. We want to choose Prometheus. Or write Prometheus. 9090 is the port. And I think everything, save and test. There you go, and it's fine. Refresh. I can choose the source, import, and there you go. I can now see the metrics that I'm getting from 192.168.100.22. You have seen Node Exporter. Let me show you now how to display SNMP in Grafana dashboard. Again, I go to the Grafana website and I'm going to search pfsense this time, because my firewall is a pfsense after all. So hit search, and there you go. So let's test this one. And we want to make sure that we are using SNMP. Okay, so this one is not SNMP, so we don't want this one. So let's say pfsense SNMP, or just SNMP. And there you go. So let's test one of these ones. Okay, I'm interested in SNMP interface throughput. Hit download. Let's save this. So as you can see, there are multiple sources that you can choose. In this case, we want to use SNMP because in certain cases, like if you're monitoring Cisco devices, you don't really have the opportunity to install any applications on it. So this is a good example of SNMP. We go back to Grafana dashboards. Let's see, we want to create a new dashboard. Again, import. Drag over that file, again, through Prometheus, because Prometheus is scraping SNMP-Exporter. Hit import. And up here, you can see that the device that's monitoring is 192.168.100.1, which is my firewall. And like this, I'm actually seeing what bandwidth is coming through the interfaces. Prometheus and Grafana are very flexible, so the list is endless what you can do with it. I suggest you to go ahead and try what I was showing you in this video and test it out for yourself. You can monitor your network, your home network, or maybe your business if you want to have a monitoring solution for your business. Don't forget to comment down below. Let me know your thoughts about Grafana and Prometheus. I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, take care.